This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
So you want to start bullshitting about the books?
I do want to talk about these books. I'm sorry. I am so distressed. There's a reason we're taking September off. I'm barely going to make it through August. The wedding is 100% on my mind. It is consuming everything I'm thinking about, except when I send you little one-offs when I listen to the audiobooks.
Yeah, those are cool. You're definitely a little more all over the place than usual.
What? Me?
Just a skosh. But today we are here to do chapter 32. We're getting towards the end of the book. We're getting to another payoff chapter that, we have been anticipating for so long. Not specifically this confrontation, but just the way that Elaine is finally having things happen rather than just politicking.
I mean, because this is the payoff of essentially the Black Ajah storyline, the one that began way back in the White Tower when they were sent out by Suan to pursue the 13 Black Sisters. It's not a total accumulation of it, but it's not sort of the end until the last battle, where they're just part of the last battle, right? But this is the end of the hunting them, right? Right. It's the end of that. It's the end of, and this one and the next chapter
is the beginning of the end of her succession plot.
Succession, because there is a 2-chapter arc, so we have a succession plot. And sort of like the end of the Van Dien Adelius plot line.
Well, that was technically last chapter.
I know we already... That was technically last chapter, right? But, we're sort of... Yeah, we're basically Jordan's, checking boxes off one after the other, being like, we are getting ready. We are rearing up for that last battle. And I have these dangling plot lines, these threads in the pattern that I just either need to cut short or, ignore from here on out.
Yeah, basically. I mean, he took a few chapters to wrap up Fail and Malden, and now we're done with that. So now we're shifting focus to Elaine. We're taking a few chapters.
3.
Yeah, a few chapters, 3 chapters to wrap up Elaine's whole Black Ajah succession twist of plots. And it's a good chapter. I really enjoyed this chapter. This is a very fun action chapter. We get to be in Birgitte's head, which is, not the most common POV, and she's fun to be with. And
there's one line in here where I love Birgitte thinking about her past, because it's great lore drop, right?
Yeah. It's a good chapter. It's RJ just doing his thing, and we love it.
And in POV writing, we're seeing the event that we saw in the last chapter from Birgitte's POV instead of Elaine's, but we know what's going on inside because we just saw that happen. But yeah, I really enjoy this. I love Birgitte. I think she's very smart. I love what she does. I love her strategy, even though it is bloody as hell.
Yeah. It's one of those ridiculous, general decisions where you're like, wait, that was the strategically sound thing, was to just meat grinder all those people?
Yeah.
What? But, it's hard to, see the alternative and...
With the resources she had on hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an intense chapter, but it's a good chapter.
It's a very good chapter. There's a reason people read Knife of Dreams and go, oh yeah, Jordan was back, right? And it's chapters like this.
Yep, absolutely. All right, ready for me to read us in?
I am always ready for you to read us in.
Okay. Chapter 32, To Keep the Bargain, and our symbol is the Seafolk Seagulls. Birgitte was leaning against the stone wall of the 3-story house, thinking sadly of Guidal, when the bundle of emotions and physical sensations in the back of her head, her awareness of Elaine, suddenly spasmed. That was the only word for it. Whatever it was lasted just a moment, but afterward, the bond was full of limpness. Elaine was conscious, but unsteady. She was unafraid, however. Still, Birgitte threw back her cloak and moved to the corner to peer up Full Moon Street. Elaine could be too brave for her own good. The hardest thing about being Elaine's warder was keeping her from endangering herself beyond need. Nobody was indestructible, but the bloody woman thought she bloody well was. Her sigil should have been an iron lion rather than a golden lily. That light shone in the window, spilling a pale pool into the narrow street, and there was not a sound except for a cat yowling somewhere in the night. So yeah, scene, set, tension, escalating.
Cat channeling.
There is a lot of mentions of this cat-dog dynamic in the background. I guess.
Yeah. There's something going on here. I don't know. It's one of those things that get mentioned early on, and it feels like he forgets about it for like 5 books. Then it's like, oh yeah, I should put that back in.
Cats are like, there's lots of channeling happening tonight.
Yeah, right. And it's like, why do those dogs have a barking session? Right? Oh, it's just channeling or something. Right? I like that idea. So yeah, obviously what's going on is what we saw in the last chapter. Elaine and company are getting zapped with the Terran Real. That they're getting shocked. Right? Pretty much everybody is still confident because they're alive. And then we get this conversation about Carrie Ann.
Yeah.
Right?
That she feels confident, more confident than she did when going in.
Because there's a bunch of black sisters.
She just
her
recognized.
allies.
Yeah. She just saw them come in and was like, oh, good. So I do have the situation under control.
Mm-hmm. And so, question. Are Carrie Ann's warders dark friends? Because she's got 2, right? Veneer and Cyrell.
Yeah.
Because they're both like talking about how she feels going in. They're talking to each other. So they must be her 2 warders. Mm-hmm. The one warder says she feels confident. I say we wait. And the other one says more so than she did going in. And the first one gives them a sharp glance. Like, don't give that shit away.
It does make me think that they're both dark friends and both.
That sharp glance is what makes me think they're dark friends. Is that like,
I agree.
Don't give it away that like there might be allies coming to help her, because then we might be seen as dark friends.
Yeah. There's another name in here, Tavan, which I don't see anywhere else on the page. All 3
of them are warders to Carrie Ann.
So she has 3 warders.
She has 3 warders.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess probably all 3 of them are dark friends, maybe?
God, it's not clear. And Encyclopedia Watt says it's unclear, right, whether they are or not. So for me, make your own conclusions. We see both with the dark friends, with the Black Aja. Sometimes they are dark friends and hiding that from their warders. Sometimes they try and find another dark friend they can bond as a warder, right? So, and especially someone with 3, right? Like, you could see that being a mix, that maybe 2 of them are dark friends hiding it from the third or something like that.
Yeah, and one isn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's no consistent pattern there. And once she dies, they're all going to react the same.
Exactly.
So it's impossible to tell.
So, but that glance makes me think at least those 2 are dark friends.
Yeah, agreed.
And because they're giving away the whole, like, reinforcements are coming thing.
Yeah. And then, as they wait and Birgitte wonders what to do, the warders start screaming in rage as their eyes to die progressively die. And
right.
Birgitte,
again, as we saw,
turns to head back to the palace immediately because she knows what the fuck that means.
So, order of death. Carrie Ann dies first, then Van Deen, then the third one.
And then, the Gaibon and Birgitte, know what that means and respond accordingly. Or no, it's not Gaibon, Urith. The leader of the
we get Gaibon later.
Yeah, the leader of the Queen's Guard and Birgitte are like, that's bad.
Right, but you notice what they do. Instead of running in revenge, they run the fuck away and get help.
Exactly.
Which I think is that's why one of the reasons I love Birgitte so much is she immediately was like, oh, okay, I can't handle this. Time to go get help. Like, Elaine's not dead, and if I run in there's nothing I can do. We can go get help. She's in their possession.
Yeah.
Game over.
I'll actually take it back. Urith does not vibe with that. Only Birgitte is smart enough to know that. Urith is actually as silly as a warder and is actually about to head in. I misrepresented her. She is silly as the warders. Well, the warders are dealing with death rage, so it's not silly. But only Birgitte has the presence of mind to exit the scene to get help rather than to make it worse. And so she makes sure that they grab Hark, which I know. So Hark goes to slip away, and I was wondering if that was part of him having been caught and compelled, as per your hypothesis last time. If he had orders to, go and report to them at some later location, so that way they could continue to use him for whatever purposes in the aftermath of getting away with Elaine.
I just think it's him seeing disaster, trying to use it.
Or survival instinct. From a person with a well-honed survival instinct. Yeah, could just be that.
I always say I love that Birgitte has a horse named Arrow, because I had a dog named Arrow. So that's my Wheel of Time reference there.
Also very appropriate for Birgitte, to have a
Yes.
horse named
Obviously,
Arrow.
yes.
Yeah,
yes,
I had to put
obviously.
that together. But yes, that's very cute that you and Birgitte share a penchant for that name.
But yeah, of course she has arrows because she's a bowman and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's that like my arrow who
Yeah.
guides me forward, and there's lots of good metaphor
Fast as
there.
an arrow, this horse.
Yes, totally.
And so as she's galloping through the streets at a breakneck pace, the sky is turning gray. So keeping track of our timeline from middle of the night through the mid-morning when this battle concludes.
Okay.
Right. The sky is turning gray as she is heading back to the palace.
And basically, people seeing her galloping at full speed are like, "Okay, putting my helmet on." Like everybody's
Right,
like,
right.
they're like, "Wait, she went out with the queen this morning, and she's coming galloping back at a pace breakneck speed." Okay, putting on my pants.
Yeah.
Everybody gets
breakfast is
ready.
going to be rushed today, guys.
Get your coffee in, chug that, and put on your armor because
Yeah.
we are going to fight.
And she's yelling for people to like summon the Windfinders and the kinswomen and so on and so forth as she goes, and to summon Dylan, to summon Gaibon. She arrives in the map room to discover that Dylan and Gaibon are already there because by sheer coincidence, Aramilla is launching her most intense attack yet on the walls, and they're in the process of responding to that when Birgitte comes in with a bigger crisis for them to handle.
Which causes this moment where they need to split their troops, right? And there's a bit of an argument about that, right? Because they need to keep enough troops on the walls to keep Aramilla from breaking in, but Birgitte needs enough troops to go rescue Elaine, or at least enough people to throw into a meat grinder that the Windfinders will rescue Elaine.
Same. Potato.
There was a big debate about it, and then I wasn't entirely sure how many she ended up pulling off and how many got left on. I never figured out what the final numbers were. I got bounced around too many times.
Because I think it happens twice. I think they
Okay.
make one split, and then as they're going out to deploy, they have to split again. And so, yeah, I also have never really kept track of the exact numbers because, yeah, Birgitte sends, after they split up from here, yeah, there's another instance, and this is not the kind of detail I care about, so I don't know.
All right, well, stay tuned. I'll try and see if I can gather as we
Okay.
go through.
All right.
But I love her advantage of being able to, she knows exactly where Elaine is and how far away she is because of the bond.
And how fast she's traveling.
And how fast she's traveling. And can at any moment basically say, okay, we're going to just gateway in front of them.
Yeah.
Which I think is just, it's such a cool,
She's a GPS
effective
tracker.
order. Yeah, she's a GPS tracker on Elaine. And like that combined with gateways means they can really never get away from her. Like, I know she's in this big hurry, but I'm kind of like, maybe stop Aramilla first and then go rescue Elaine?
But also, you have no idea. They might hop through a gateway of their own at any time. They might, like, start applying compulsion to her. Like, every minute she's in Darkfriend hands is dangerous.
True.
It's a really fast-moving situation with no good options.
Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder why, and not why, I wonder how information got to Aramilla that she should do this big push now, because clearly this is triggered by the fact that Elaine did this raid on the house on Full Moon Street. There's no way this is an actual coincidence, right?
Hold on, I have to look up Aramilla for a second, because I seem to remember her meeting. How do you spell Aramilla?
Arymilla. It's literally right in front of me on the page. Aramilla.
Aramilla. Okay.
And also there's this line here about, unless there's dark friends have somehow smuggled an army inside Camlyn, we'll be fine. And then like 2 pages later, that's exactly what the information that comes up is like, there's basically an army that's been smuggled inside Camlyn, and we have to deal with it. Oh, right. And also all of the neutral houses are moving on the same day. And again, it's like, there's no way that that's all just a coincidence, that like this raid happens and then all the different armies start moving.
I mean, I think we're talking to Veer and Light, right?
Ugh.
Unfortunately, because I don't see Aramilla meeting with anybody. I think that basically this is a high tension moment, and
so why the hell did Elaine have to choose this day to go on a fucking raid of the Black Aja and get herself all fuckered up? That's terrible timing.
Because this was the day that following Hanlon worked. It didn't work before this.
Why did it get allowed to work on this? It just all feels so like why is it all happening on the same day?
Because Robert Jordan wanted an exciting, action-packed chapter, and he successfully created one.
I can't argue with that logic.
This is entirely, I'm giving him writing license on this one. That he's just like, you know what? I'm going to wrap this shit up in one big bow, and it's all these threads are coming together. This is the last battle, right? Like, Elaine needs to be there to run the last battle. She needs to be queen. The pattern is doing its thing and saying, let's wrap this shit up because the last battle needs to happen now. And there's a little bit of Jordan wrapping it up because he needs to write the last battle, and a little bit of the pattern wrapping it up because the last battle needs to happen and she needs to be there. Like, we're metagaming here or meta writing here, but like,
sure.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
All right.
It doesn't bother me.
Okay.
You can let it bother you too, but I don't.
Well, mostly I was just like, is there something there that I was missing, or is this literally just his artistic license? Like, did I miss a communique?
I don't think so. As far as I know, it's just. Right. I mean, maybe Aramilla knew about the other people moving. Those two I can see being related. Those are big armies moving. There could be pigeons flying between them. There could be scouts, right? Like, one army moving could have triggered Aramilla's attack.
Okay. Well,
so maybe the neutral parties decided to move. Although, are they moving to support Elaine or Aramilla or like that? I also wasn't clear on. What is their whole? Who are they moving to support? Because eventually they come to Elaine, but that's because Elaine has beaten Aramilla.
It's not made clear. They suspect that they put forward a few hypotheses, but as far as I know, we never get confirmation of which of those is correct.
Because I think a bunch of them die in fighting too, right?
Not here.
No, okay.
Yeah, they don't make it in time for this conflict.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so Birgitte thinks about how her and Dylan just don't get along.
It reminds me of Min and Fail.
Yeah, it's totally that dynamic.
Of like, they're both good people, we both like them, but man, they strike each other the wrong way.
They're just a little bit too similar, but also just the wrong kind of different.
And like, there are totally people like that in real life that I've met.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that he puts these in here, that it's like, we like all these people, but sometimes they don't like each other, and they don't have to.
And there doesn't have to be a good reason for it.
No.
Sometimes people just don't like each other, and that is
right.
all the reason you get or need.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's not because one's evil or one's smart, or it's just people don't universally like each other. It's just not a realistic expectation. And then, yeah, we get this very cool paragraph from Birgitte about her memories, because she tells Gaibon, oh, yeah, balefire is, super dangerous, blah, blah, blah. And she reflects on how she is repeating things that Elaine told her that she told Elaine. And she can't remember the information initially, which, weirdly actually happened to me when I was a kid. I had a friend teach me how to make daisy chains, and I was like, that's really cool. Thanks for teaching me. And she's like, you're the one who taught me how to do this. So I 1000% do not remember that. And we were 7, 6, at the time, but she swore up and down that I had taught her how to do it. And I was like, you literally just taught me how to do this. This is such a weird conversation.
So that's happened to me. And my theory is that you have something in short-term memory. You teach it to somebody, they have it in short-term memory, and they practice it enough that it goes into their long-term memory, but it never sticks in your long-term memory. And so you forget that you even knew how to do it, right? Because you never practiced it as much. Even though you did it first and you taught them how to do it, it never stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
You didn't develop the skill. You had the knowledge, but you didn't have the skill.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like how a lot of interactions that are really meaningful to one person, the person on the other end of that interaction, did not. It was not a profound meeting in a coffee shop that one time. It was just one of a million interactions that day. But for the other person, it's that's the conversation that changed their perspective on going to college or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Same
right.
kind of, we assign different levels of storage to the same thing.
Different levels of importance, right? I mean, and parents do it a lot with kids,
yeah,
right? That's why parents and kids can have a very different recollection of how their childhood went. The parents are like, everything was fine, you were doing great, I thought you were happy, I thought, then the children are like, I was suffering, I was miserable, I never, how did you not see that? And it's like, oh, well, the interactions that I thought were minor inconveniences you saw as huge tragedies. and the things I saw as great, you saw as, kind of crappy, right? And vice versa.
Right.
And it doesn't take many of those, and all of a sudden, like that trip that the parents spent a ton of money on and effort on and said, didn't you really enjoy that trip to the, Grand Canyon? And the kid's like, I don't remember that at all. But I do remember you yelling at me in the airport because we were late for our flight.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the trauma I experienced. Meanwhile, you're like, I gave my kid this great experience, but all you gave your kid was trauma.
Yeah.
Isn't it fun being... Yeah, okay. By the way, have I mentioned that I'm thinking about having kids once I'm married pretty soon? So...
Therapy.
I won't mess my kids up the way my parents did. I'll find a new way to do it.
I mean, honestly, that's the best you can hope for.
It really
to
is.
break
It really
generational
is.
cycles and create something different. It's like this. I learned this in therapy. You can have that one for free.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of therapy, Birgitte.
Yeah.
She is losing her memories. It is a tragedy that we are seeing happening in real time. A little bit through a conversation with Elaine, but here we see it in her own mind.
She did not think she had lost any recently, but how would she know if she had? Heartbreaking.
I mean, you want to talk about like an Alzheimer's analogy, right? She just happens to have lifetimes to forget instead of one lifetime.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think she's slowly leaking back into the world of dreams, right? She's who she is, that legend, that soul is back in the world of dreams.
Right. It's too much for one person to hold. Like, all that extra has to go back to from whence it came. An isostatic rebound across the veil.
Yeah. Rand can't even deal with one lifetime. Matt just he's got a bunch of spotty lifetimes, but not like full lifetimes. He's got individual memories.
Perrin just has 2 lives. Just 2 entire lives he's living in parallel.
And in a lot of ways, he has sort of ancestral memories he can ask the wolves about.
Right.
I was thinking interesting how much Jordan is saying he gives us Matt, this character who has other people's memories in them, but has no voices in his head. And and Rand, who has another man's memories in his head and a voice. And he gives us this very clear paradigm of, yes, you can have other men's memories and not be insane. And Rand has a voice in his head, so he's clearly insane. And people are like, no, Rand's not insane.
Nah.
He just has another man's memories. And it's like, so does Matt. No voices.
Right.
He doesn't hear the old generals. He just incorporated the memories into them. And I think that's what's amazing about like the moment on Dragonmount is how much Jordan gave us a model for what Rand could become. This, Matt integrated his memories and became the battle general, became this great hero, unintentionally. And if Rand could have done the same thing earlier, he could have been this great channeler, great, all of these things. But the madness almost prevented that from happening.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it was only the taint that allowed it to happen in the first place. So, wheel of time, circle of balance, all that kind of crap. Yeah. Right.
I think it's also cool in here that we learned that Birgitte and Guido Kane were pretty instrumental to helping the White Tower come into existence.
That's pretty cool.
You would need some heroes to create an institution that does what the White Tower does over all that time.
I would love the story of the founding of the White Tower. Jordan hints at it a few times, but we never get it. Right? We know it was these Aes Sedai who survived the breaking, who, journeyed for a long time and then came back together and created the White Tower. But there was no Oathrod, there was no Ajahs, right?
Yeah, Ajahs were very different than they were, and then
they were literally like projects. They were
temporary associations. They ranged in number of how many there were.
They're like committees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very, very different. So there's so many good stories there.
It was just a more flexible, larger institution than it currently is. Now it's this hidebound, traditional thing.
Well, I mean, it was embryonic back when she was involved, which also makes me think, like, so souls retain their ability to channel across lifetimes, right?
Yes, there's also a genetic component, and so it seems to be you need both. You need a body that can channel and a soul that retains it.
Yeah, so it seems like Birgitte's not a channeler.
Right.
And yet she was involved, her and Geidel were involved integrally in helping the White Tower come into existence. That implies so much about how much the tower needed non-channelers at its early days in order to get established, even though they're all high and mighty now. Like, they used to need real people, not just warders.
Well, and what quest did they go on? What did they find? What area, what was on the island before the tower?
Right, who was attacking them, like, while the tower still didn't have walls? Where did they get their food from before they established all of their tribute relationships with the different kingdoms? How did they find the island in the first place?
Right.
Like, how did they bring people in safely across the dangerous, like, wilderlands? Like, so many stories where Birgitte and Geidel could have been there over generations, like, over the different centuries that the tower was existing. They could have been reborn repeatedly to help with that. It certainly implies it here that it was more than one lifetime.
For me, I always thought it was just the one lifetime during the founding of the White Tower. I think it's just because the tower was founded, 2,800, 2,500 years ago? Because it was after the breaking, but before the Trolloc Wars.
Yeah, it was pretty quick because there were still some Aes Sedai who remembered the pre-breaking world when it got founded.
Mm-hmm.
Some. So yeah, I guess maybe it was just the one lifetime, but still, you could make so many books about it. It'd be so cool.
Because I assume those are the same Aes Sedai who created the Eye of the World and the...
Well, those all died to make it pure.
Oh, that's true. Well, no, because there were... Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. That was explicitly part of how that pool of Sidene came into existence, was human sacrifice.
But I wasn't sure if there were some other ones who were, like, masterminding it and stuff, and who, like...
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, sure, for sure. We have no idea how many people knew what the plan was and helped it happen in less dramatic ways. That's super, super true.
Assuming you need a big organization to create, So, here's my headcanon philosophy. What if one of the original missions of the White Tower was around creating the Eye of the World, and then that group of people that survived stayed together and formed a group of channelers who went on to found the White Tower?
I mean, we certainly saw what looked like a proto-White Tower, not proto-White Tower, but like a pre-breaking White Tower organization arguing about what to do with the sword and the banner in Rand's visions. Mm-hmm. So certainly some of people who were part of the institution would try to retain the institution and like re-inoculate a new institution with their old structure. Like, that makes sense.
And thinking that you need a large group of people to do everything they did to create Kalendor, the Eye of the World, all that kind of stuff. Like, you're going to need a large group that's going to continue to... Why would the organization break up? And then where would they come from, right? So what if the creation of the Eye of the World, the greatest need the world ever had, was the creation of the White Tower, in fact?
Whoa!
It had nothing to do with the Pool of Sidene. It was just like...
Institutional catalyst.
Yeah, exactly. It just needed the institution of the White Tower, and the creation of the Eye of the World triggered that.
I hate the idea that our ultimate destiny is to manifest a bureaucracy.
Right.
I don't like that.
A really ineffective one,
like
riddled with dark friends. Yeah.
No, that's some Douglas Adams levels of absurdity.
Oh my God! Can you imagine writing a whole series about a savior who sacrifices to create like a terrible bureaucracy that just rules everybody's lives?
This is literally Douglas Adams. No, that's terrible. Don't do it.
And like, it's like, I have brought freedom to all of you. Freedom to fill out form FB775.
God, it's like Terry Gilliam. I hate this. All right, Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to the books, Gaibon says, well, at least we're going to have Aes Sedai of our own to fight back, to take the Lady Elaine back. And Brigitte's like, no,
they're dead.
We don't have those. And Gaibon's like, so that's going to make the day interesting, and just soldiers on, because he's a solid guy who definitely deserves to be Elaine's next warder.
In come a couple of the wise ones. These are the ones, sorry, the sea folk, right?
Yes. No, the kinswomen.
The kinswomen, sorry. Ooh, too many groups of women.
Seriously.
These are two kinswomen. Juliana helps take out the golem.
Oh, she does. She helps with Matt doing his. Oh, very cool.
Let me double check that.
That would make sense because a lot of what these women are doing
Yep.
is using gateways to get around. So it makes sense that
Yes.
with him weaponizing a gateway to get rid of that fucker. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's one of the ones he recruits to help him take out the golem.
Nice.
The other ones are just groups of the kin who are just, generic kin people. No, nothing unique about them. They're in scenes, but they don't do anything other than be with the kin.
Right. They're like in pairs so that they can make gateways that are big enough to pass through. We've been using them for books. We'll continue using them as just generalized messengers. But that is cool that this one is part of killing the golem. Or eliminating the golem, I should say. We don't know if he dies. So yeah, they're here to report on the neutral armies moving. That's been their job, is to keep an eye on them. And so now they are reporting that, hey, keeping an eye on them was a good idea. They're moving. Birgitte says, thank you very much. Go, clean up because you are not here for battle. That you're just here to bring information. So, thank you. Dismissed.
I 100% think that they basically were waiting for Aramilla to move. They saw her move, and they're like, well, somebody's going to win this battle. We're going to sit there, wait until we see an opportunity, and then influence it.
Yeah. Maybe take over the siege works, maybe not.
Right.
Either way, we're going to move in and steal a base. They're basically going for stealing a base at this point.
Now, yeah, I guess it would be interesting if we had some evidence that Aramilla had contact with the Black Ajah, because then it would be the Black Ajah sent up the flag for Aramilla to attack when they captured Elaine, right? And that then triggered everything else that happens.
Yeah. Could be.
Could be.
Not sure if that happened, but that's how it might have worked.
That's how it might have worked. And Aramilla just, she's influenceable enough that maybe they had a contact that told her when to go. Or,
Exactly. Yeah. She's not hard to lead.
No, we don't. We spend a fair amount of time seeing all the corruption around her, but we don't. She could be influenced by 100 different people. Like, we're not in her head enough to know what happened that caused her to attack in this moment.
Right. Which is a little annoying, but also like whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
So then, the kinswomen get sent off, and then the sea folk come in and start being sea folk all over the place.
Yeah, I guess basically what I wanted to say is they're not even willing to heal because they see that as taking part in the fighting.
Which is...
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty rude line to draw, personally. I get it, like, geopolitically, I get it, but also, like, it's healing. Come on.
Right. These people maybe say, like, I'll heal these warriors if they don't go back into battle, right? But, like, people are dying. Help them.
Right? Yeah, like, they're out of the battle regardless, but I will allow them to go back to their lives. Feels like a line you could draw. But no, we're just gonna be meanie pants.
Okay, so the connection that I did find with Aramilla, it's not with the Dark Friends, but it is with the mercenaries who are rebelling from inside. They are paid off by Aramilla to do that, right? So she is attacking, the mercenaries attacking from the inside did trigger her attack.
Okay.
Right? And wasn't Mellar in contact with the mercenaries?
Possibly?
Didn't he go to... so let's look at the ones who betrayed. I'm tracing down this connection because I think it exists. I think we can figure it out. Who are the mercenaries? Bakuvan, but Corduin and Gossamin are the other two that betrayed them. Let's see.
No, those are the ones that didn't betray them. They're there fighting the betrayers.
No, the only one who doesn't betray them is Bakuvan.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. I thought it was all three of them.
No.
Oh, shows what my reading comprehension is. Oh, him and a dozen of his men, not...
Yes.
Okay, that's where I was getting confused. It is him and multiple people, but it's not the other captains. It's his pure personal people. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the only thing I'll say is these guys did come into the palace to meet with Elaine and demand more money.
Yeah, we saw them with Bakuvan, like all three of them. Yeah.
Right. So... it's tough for me to connect them with Hanlon exactly, but Hanlon had the opportunity to connect with them, and there could certainly be some dark friendery going on. But they could just be betrayed Aramilla,
Yeah.
And it could just be a coincidence that the Dark Friends and Camlyn gets tracked down the same day that Aramilla. It's one coincidence. It's not.
Yeah.
Everything else can be tracked down to Aramilla bribing these guards and attacking.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
So, well, I'm not too worried about the single coincidence here.
Yeah, we can allow
But I
it.
do wish I could connect them.
I appreciate the effort, but yeah, it seems like we're just going to have to let it be a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, basically Birgitte says, I need you to make me a gateway. Shanila says, I want that to be a formal exception to the bargain. And Birgitte very casually sidesteps that.
Yeah.
You notice like Shanila like goes for the kiss on the lips, like the fingers to lips thing to like seal the bargain that's all she has to do. And Birgitte just turns away and says, you only have to do what you want.
Yep. There's no bargain. You do what you want.
This is not a bargain. This is you choosing to take actions of your own free will.
Because you want your previous bargain to be, enforced. And if the person you made it with is dead or kidnapped, there's no one to have that bargain with.
And that's where the title of the chapter comes from. In order to keep the bargain, you have to violate terms and conditions of said bargain.
Right. And, of course, the icon, the sea folk, because these are the sea folk violating the bargain.
Exactly. To keep the bargain that makes the sea folk very, very happy, you're going to have to do something that, as sea folk, is going to make you pretty pissed. And
then we have this moment where Birgitte is whispering instructions to Gaibon. And I think in that moment, she's basically saying, she's telling him the plan, right? Of, you guys are going to have to march into this. It's going to have to look bloody. It's going to have to look hopeless because I need the Windfinders to participate.
Right, like, don't be clever. Don't play smart games. I need you to just run straight into the dragon's maw. Like, that's what I need from you desperately because I'm playing mind games with these bitches. Yeah, I agree. She's telling him, like, you're clever. You could do something clever, but don't. I need you to do the not clever thing.
And also just like an apology of like, I'm sorry, a lot of men are going to die today.
Well, she says
like,
that loudly.
Yes.
She doesn't have to whisper that to him. She's like, we're going to lose a lot of people. Hopefully it's worth it. But yeah, I agree.
But now she's saying
that
why.
Whisper is to say, I need this to look as awful as possible. Don't try to limit casualties, please.
It's been raining lately. It's not that long since the Bowl of the Winds was used.
Yeah, this
right?
is still, I think, just the seasonal. I mean, we're into the seasons again. We're having seasons again, but it's still overcorrecting a little bit.
Right. And so we're getting just crazy amounts of rain for spring, in quotes, because these, like, it's making up.
Yeah, it's a winter-spring hybrid, you know?
Yeah. Because we kind of missed winter entirely.
Right, winter has been playing catch-up, yeah.
So, like, winter happened really quick in Winter's Heart, and now it's the spring officially again. But, like, yep.
Yeah, the celestial year is spring, but yeah, the weather is still very much like winter.
Mm-hmm. Then there's a lot of mud because everything was frozen dead, and now it's inundated with water.
Yeah.
Birgitte kind of, in her own head, justifies it, being like, these men said they were going to die for Elaine, so they're dying for Elaine.
Which, I mean, she's not wrong. It's just because this is a particularly brutal battle doesn't change the, like, ultimate math of, like, these men did sign up to take on a lethal job, and any given day they go into battle, they could die. Like, that is true. It's just extra brutal when
brutal
you've
for
got,
sending them into a meat grinder. Yeah,
it's a really brutal battle and a lot of casualties. It's
and your strategy depends on there being casualties.
And like, I'm not a military historian, but I know that this is not an unheard of strategy. And I mean, not the Windfinders part, but the just war of attrition. I have more bodies to throw at this than you is like, that's a thing people do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fucking awful. But it also does occasionally, achieve its military objective, at which point people get praised as being, brilliant generals or whatever. And there you go.
And I do think some of the frustration with Elaine comes from the idea that, like, all these people really didn't have to die if she'd been more careful, and that she doesn't really seem to give them the thought that they deserve, because suddenly she's queen and victorious, and it doesn't seem to be the mourning for the dead that I think many people want to see.
Yeah, she thinks about it, like, briefly as Birgitte helps her out of the wagon, but that's it. She should have, like, built a war monument or something to all the people she got killed with her recklessness.
Right. And it's like, oh, my babies will be fine. So she, like, the last line here, right, in this whole chapter the bond never carried a hint of fear, because she just is like, well, my babies will be fine, and it's too young for me to be hurt, and it's like, so she's just not afraid, and it's like, okay, but like, shouldn't you be afraid for the other people who are dying? Shouldn't you be afraid for the, like, Birgitte and the Windfinders and...
Yeah. And just because these men said that they were willing to die for you doesn't mean that they should die. It would be cool if you could send them home to their families instead. Like, that would be optimal. Like, you should be a little less cavalier with your cavalry, maybe.
But it is, I mean, in a lot of ways you are... So here's how I think about it. Jordan writing people charging an entrenched encampment with machine guns, and enough people basically have to die until you can call in air support. God. And how realistic that is to actual war. And that it might actually be the strategy of, like, a general might be like, I'm going to have to throw enough soldiers at this, that enough die, that I can justify calling in an airstrike to the higher-ups.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's a thing.
Yeah, it's gnarly. It's very gnarly. I don't like war. I think it's bad. And yeah, Vuji in chat, Min may have made one of the worst mistakes of the books by talking about the having those babies born healthy and strong. Like, giving that prophecy may have been her largest mistake.
I mean, she does talk about how she really hates giving out information about the prophecies, because sometimes telling people about the prophecies causes them, right? Like, trying to avoid death causes it, right? Like, that's the monkey's paw of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do to avoid it, because anything you do to avoid it will pull you right back into doing the actions that force you into it. It's that weird time travel paradox of, like, what if no matter what you did, and when you travel back in time, you couldn't change anything because time just self-corrected and forced you back onto the path, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's kind of the pattern doing its thing.
Yeah.
Because for me, the idea was always like, if you do anything that changes history, you kind of instantly cause a paradox that closes that loop and shuts it down. And so the only possible path forward are ones where you don't create paradoxes, which are ones where you don't change anything.
Right. And maybe that's why time travel hasn't been invented.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons, but yeah. And that gets me on my other favorite rant. We live in a 7-dimensional world, not a 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional one.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right? Because up, down, left, right, forward, back, and time forward. Those are 7 dimensions, not 3. Anyway, moving on. Time's the only one that doesn't have the symmetrical. All the other directions have 2.
Seems suspicious.
Yeah. Right?
Birgitte thinks about how women are weak and should use ranged weapons instead of swords.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Like, because it is pretty accurate, right? Like, physical strength when you were going up in a wrestling or sword on sword, there is an average strength difference between men and women.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's a weight class thing. And there's lots of women and men who don't fit into the women and men weight classes. So it's like, the simple truth is, unless you're Gwendolyn Christie, you're probably going to need to be better. But, you know, if you're Brienne of Tarth, like this, you are inherently stronger than almost every source person that you're dealing with. Like, so it's just one of those, it's very 90s and it's very, I mean, that's 2000s at this point. Because everyone still thinks that, well, obviously women are weaker and less strong and less capable. And that's why we have the Women's Olympics, is so that way the girlies can have a chance to win some medals, when, like, in fact, like, it's the other way around. We have it so that the boys' fifis don't get hurt. But, you know, so I think it's Birgitte's bow bias coming in, really. I think this is mostly Birgitte's bow bias more than anything else. She just thinks that swords are inferior, truly.
Sure. Right. Okay, well, I come from a swimming world, right? But I will say, in swimming, there is a significant difference. Like, the top female swimmers cannot compete with the top male swimmers in terms of, like, because it's just raw time, right? Like, there's minutes, no, not minutes, but there's a significant difference in those top ranges.
Yeah, that's too much sport detail for me.
That's something I grew up, it's crazy to me because, as a high schooler, I was an Olympic level. If I'd been a female swimmer, I could have gone to the Olympics and won, right? Like
you were doing those times.
I was doing those levels of times.
Whatever that is, yeah.
Yeah, and I was at best, pretty good in my state as a male swimmer, and you can't. There were exceptions, but the idea of having the male swimmers and the female swimmers compete, it just wouldn't have worked.
Right, but there's other ways to weight class people than just by their genitals, right?
Yes.
And that's what I wish we saw more of, is people being just actually weight classed, and maybe there's gender dynamics and patterns that you see in that, but maybe there's not, because on a per sport basis,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I mean, and I'm trying not to. If we want to get in the whole trans debate,
no, we don't.
No, okay. It's just I have lost the plot of where we were in this chapter entirely.
Yeah,
that's yeah.
Okay, where are we? Okay, I think we're going to come back to the book at Reen Harfor fully running to Birgitte with a wounded guardsman in tow to bring the news that there is now a rebellion inside Low Camlyn of sellswords to add to the stew. So there's an attack coming from the outside, and Elaine is being kidnapped, and now there's an attack coming from the inside. This is the final piece of shit hitting the fan.
Right. And we know that the attack on the inside were the mercenaries bribed by Aramilla to do that attack. So that is a coordinated thing.
Yes.
And as we know, it's 3 of the 4 mercenaries are attacking the Farmading Gate. 1 is still defending. We have Corduin, Gomasin, and there's one more.
Bakovan.
But there's one more battle.
Oh, okay.
Bakovan's the good one. Give me a second.
Oh, yes, there's 3 or 4 companies, and then we get 3 names, and we know one of them is okay.
So the last one is Rice Balaman.
Oh, yeah.
Balaman. So
okay.
He was in Knife of Dreams, chapter 17, Knife of Dreams, when Aramilla bribed them.
Okay,
And
all right.
Yeah. So, and Elaine signs his death warrant later.
Gotcha. Yeah, so only Bakovan of all the mercenary captains stays loyal. He does get killed, I believe, in this altercation, but he gets killed on the right side, so, good for him. And so, yeah, this is where... No? Does he not get killed?
I didn't think so. I thought he requests a reward from Elaine for being
Never mind
heroic,
then.
and she didn't. She's like, nope, you don't get a reward. You just for doing your job. He's like, what the fuck? I saved your kingdom.
I'm with Elaine on that
actually,
one.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I saw her logic, but
I mean, a small bonus for acts of heroism. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Tipping.
Yeah, sure. Tipping for excellent service. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah. Okay, so he doesn't die. Cool.
No.
So yeah, this is where they split the army yet again. Dylan, leave me all of the horse and 1,000 halberd men. You take the rest, and all of the crossbow and archers, and everyone you can find who can hold a sword, and go take that gate or hold it. And Dylan then takes all the kids, because their bannermen will fight better with the kids present. Conal, Caitlin, Branlet, and Paraval.
Yeah, and I didn't understand why Caitlin doesn't go. Is it just because she's a woman and the other ones are boys?
No, she does go.
Okay.
She does go. She is in that list. And Caitlin says, I want to stay and help with, or Catelyn says, I want to stay and help rescue Elaine. And Dylan says, you're going to go wherever I say you need to go.
Got you. Okay. I got that backwards. I thought she was arguing to stay or whatever. I got that backwards.
Yeah. So they take off, and Birgitte is left to try to, basically play chicken with the sea folk until they decide to rescue Elaine.
Mm-hmm.
Then Guybon does his part, the Legion will advance, to quote Bornhald in book 2.
And Birgitte, Chanel's like, you didn't need a gateway this big. And Brigitte's like, come with me. And she's like, what? And I love this little bit where she says she relies on human nature because they're bonded together. She expects the rest of them to follow the leader through the gateway.
Because they're in a circle. Yeah.
And
She's like, I know this woman is
yeah.
probably the one leading the circle. So if I pull her through, the rest will not be able to resist the human urge to follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Also interesting that going through a gateway, the link goes through the gateway.
Oh yeah.
Right? And doesn't really, because they say it attenuates with distance.
Yeah, so I guess it would get really weak until all of them came through.
Well, that's the question. Or would the link just go through the gateway
until the gateway winks out, and then
yeah.
But yeah, Brigitte's just like, people like to follow the leader. These are very hierarchical people. If I grab the leader and yoink her through, the rest will be inclined to not question the urge to follow. And yeah, they come through and she's able to spot the wagon and go, aha, there she is.
And sees that Aramilla's camp is empty, right? Like, so it's a full assault. All 20,000 of Aramilla's soldiers are probably at the gate, which again, big assault. Right? 20,000 soldiers, that's a lot of soldiers.
And 10,000 mercenaries on the inside, all rising up at once. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people fighting in a battle. Like, Camlyn is no stranger to death in battle at this point.
No, the streets are running red with blood like a Roman city during a civil war, right? Like, that's where we're at.
And, okay, and with all those soldiers coming through, it's interesting. She says you didn't need a gateway this big, but it's still, like, it takes a long time for the soldiers to make it through, so that she kind of did? I don't know. That wasn't really clear to me. Because, like, the Windfinders can't get back through because all the soldiers streaming through the gateway.
Yeah, it's, she didn't technically need it, but it was handy. And given how rapidly the situation was evolving, yeah, I did think she needed it.
So they're basically waiting just outside the city. They're waiting. They jumped ahead of the caravan. This entire time, the caravan of Black Sisters has been trying to escape the city. Inner Camlyn and then Lower Camlyn. And just as they leave Lower Camlyn, Birgitte jumped them to outside the city, but on a ridge closer. There's a ridge between them and Aramilla's camp, right?
Yeah.
And Aramilla, so they're between Aramilla's camp and the city.
Yeah.
Which is kind of an ideal place to attack a army from behind.
Yeah, it's a very vulnerable spot between that ridge and the city walls. That's a very vulnerable spot you want to not linger in. And Birgitte's got the high ground looking down on it. And it's just a small contingent of, however many hundred soldiers and Seven Eyes Sedai. It's not like a big army thing that she's facing down in this moment.
Except for the Seven Eyes Sedai.
Except for the Seven Eyes Sedai, one of whom is wielding a balefire rod. Yeah.
Right. And these are Darkfriend, Aes Sedai. These are Black Ajah. These aren't Aes Sedai.
These are Dreadlords, basically.
These are Dreadlords, yeah.
And so, yeah, Chanela's like, what did you want me to see? What do you want me to see? She keeps asking, like, why are you dragging me around? What do you want me to see? And Birgitte eventually is like, World War I. I would like you to observe World War I and then bring magic into the equation.
Yeah. Enjoy the horrors of World War I and try and stand there and do nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Your bargain is lost unless you bring an end to this completely horrifying carnage. So what do you say?
And I like the way they say the air smells sharp, which is, I think, ozone. Yeah. Right? Because they don't say... I always like in fantasy, they never say ozone, because we just describe the smell as ozone, but that's not a very fantasy-friendly world.
But it is very sharp.
Yeah.
It hurts. It makes you feel like your nose is going to bleed. Like, that is a very good way of describing ozone.
But yeah, and there's this moment where everybody asks to sacrifice for Elaine and join the carnage, and it's very noble and stupid.
I do not understand that kind of courage. I just do not.
I don't either.
I'm not cut out for that.
Don't think I could do it.
Nope.
Nope, I like my body too much.
Yeah, I'm way too risk averse to be like, permission to join the running into machine gun fire for the honor of the band. Nope, I absolutely not. Like, permission to never have enlisted in the army. That's more like my vibe.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just, I wonder, when we never had to do that, and I wonder, being born into a different age where, like, I had to enlist, how would I have reacted to that, right?
Well, in an ideal world, being involved in that sort of thing could just be like, cleaning up after disasters and building bridges. It doesn't have to be deployment to a combat zone in an ideal world. Could just be you help build city parks. Could be fine. But we don't live in that world, so...
No, we don't. So, yeah. I'm glad I didn't... I'm very glad that the draft was done by the time I was born.
Yeah, Brandon was very anxious until he got out of draftable age. Like, it was,
me too.
that moment when you cross that threshold and are not draftable anymore unless they change the rules broadly. It's like...
It's kind of a crazy thing that you have, like, when you turn 18, they send you this paperwork that, like, if you don't fill this out and tell us that you are, okay with being drafted, we will, like, come arrest you. Like, it's kind of crazy.
If you want student loans, you have to go on our list. Like, you can't get your student loans without, like, signing up for this. Like, it's so weird.
Predatory on the poor, again, because guess what rich people can do? Not sign up because they don't need student loans.
Yep. It's great. Why do they always send the poor?
So yeah, this beginning part, Guy Bond basically approaches at a walk. They do that first half. It's this slow walk with, I think it has to be orders, right? Because the second they start blowing shit up, I would want to run.
Yeah, and that's when he says, like, trot, charge. Like, he escalates the speed, even though it's too soon, because the best way to not get hit is to be moving. But yeah, he gets everyone to move forward rather than away, which is impressive.
Men are still coming out of the gateway, galloping and running to catch up. Fireballs fell among the ranks too now, adding their own eruptions of dirt, arms, legs. A horse's head spun lazily into the air.
Lazily.
Which is just, the kind of explosion where it's just like, oh, that's just going to drip. That's so high and so much energy that it just sort of drifts up at the top of the arc for a long time before falling back down.
It's like when you watch a volcanic eruption and the rocks look like they're moving really slow and in slow motion. And why is the air so thick that the rocks are moving so slow? No, it's just the sheer distance that they're traveling.
Yeah, they're just, the speed and the distance, and the size of the rocks, right?
Yeah. Like the parallax is tricking you. That's a very different size and distance of rock than you think you're looking at.
Right. And so, there's all these references, there's balefire, a bunch of them get balefired out of existence, right?
Yeah, and the balefire rod is very, like, erratic. Like, it's really hard to control.
Yes.
You see it stab up into the sky and down into the ground, and, like...
It's got recoil.
Yeah, basically,
right? Like, it's got
She's trying to use a shotgun, but, like, as a handgun, and, like, it's going badly for her shoulders.
Short bursts, controlled bursts, right? Like, don't try and hold the trigger down, you'll lose control, right?
She's not bracing correctly for the weapon at all.
No, she's really not. But yeah, and this is the same balefire rod we saw in Tenchiko.
Yep. I think it's the same woman wielding it. Like, it's the same routine.
She's the only one stupid enough / brave enough to wield it.
Yep.
There were a good many dead, though not so many as it seemed there should be. Birgitte had seen the same in battles during the Trolloc Wars where the power had been used. For every man who lay still, 2 or 3 were staggering to their feet or trying to stem a flow of blood. Right? This idea that, like, casualties, people get injured, but those injuries don't necessarily kill them. And your casualties can be, a certain percent, and then of those casualties, maybe a third of are actual deaths. And with the one power healing, a lot of those casualties can become not casualties.
Right. Yeah, I highlighted that paragraph too because it's one of the things that, like, always bothers me in movies that make conflict too simple. It's like, oh, so everyone except the good guys died instantly upon receiving their wounds. But then this other guy, who's an important part of the plot, is alive for hours in a pile of bodies and manages to, like, drag himself out and get stitched up later. But none of the other bad guys had wounds like that. And it bothers me because it's like this feels much more realistic that, like, there's lots of people out of the fight, but not all of them are dead.
Yeah, and a lot of people get hurt and can still fight, right? Like, what if you get, like, a couple of bad cuts and you just wrap them in something tight that staunches the bleeding? You can keep fighting, right? Like, I've had to keep fucking cooking when I've cut myself badly, right? Like, it's, you cut yourself, you go, oh, that's a bad cut. Okay, wrap it up, throw a bandage on top, and you stand back up and you keep fighting. And adrenaline is a hell of a drug. It
is. It really is.
When, like, it's like, okay, you have to kill, fight or die, right? And you're like, well, I'm bleeding, but if I can keep going, I'm going to.
Yeah, and also, like, the aftermath of battle. Once the battle's over, you have a lot of wounded. to like deal with. Otherwise, you have people dying of sepsis out on the field over the next several days, right? Like you have to go out there and pick through them and figure out who's dead and who can be saved, who can be triaged, like, and deal with that, both enemy and friendly guy alike. And that most stories do not cover that part of battle.
No.
That doesn't happen. Unless it's plot relevant.
And we do have a little bit of that in Wheel of Time, but they kind of shortcut it with Aes Sedai healing, where it's like they just walk around among the field and they're like, okay, you're healed. Okay, you're healed. Okay, you're healed.
At least they respect the fact that people need healing.
Yeah.
But yes, they also use magic hand waving quite literally to skip all the gnarly parts.
Mm-hmm. Because it's this binary thing. You're alive or you're dead. If you're alive, they can heal you back to full health. If you're or missing a limb. If you're dead, you're dead, and there's nothing they can do.
Right. So yeah, they Birgitte, they're like, "Oh, this is horrible. I want to get away from here." And Birgitte says, "Well, then make it stop." Like,
right.
Yeah, and I love that. Like, then stop it.
Right. That's all you have to do. You have the power. You're 8 people linked. It's 7 versus 8, but she's like we have one.
It's a circle versus individuals. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And that gives them the ability to just bring a very, very one big stick. And you can, take that big stick and crush each person individually with 7 times their power.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, Brigitte's knowing in her heart, I will find Elaine inevitably, but in order for Elaine's, larger political ambitions, in order for the Sea Folk bargain, in order for the victory of the light in Broad, we got to do it this way, and that's what she's doing.
Aren't these the Sea Folk that use the Bowl of the Winds as well?
I believe it's some of them, but not all of them. I think.
But they were picked for their strength in the one power.
I believe so. Yes.
And so it's probably not just a circle, but a circle of very strong channelers.
Yeah, for sure. And as soon as they choose to join the battle, it's over.
It's over.
Like, immediately.
Yeah, like it's almost instantaneous. Yeah. So we get the one strike of lightning where she basically, the one with the balefire rod is killed with lightning because fuck that bitch. It's about time, right? Like,
agreed.
Yeah, someone's like, okay, yeah, that's too dangerous.
We're done.
Like, you are too dangerous. You're done. Like, you're done. And then they just shield and tie up.
Yeah.
With
Birgitte says
all
take
the other
them
women.
alive because she knows Elaine's going to want prisoners to question.
Mm-hmm. And then Gaibon kind of does that thing where they're like yelling and dying and charging, and then the dying stops, and they all kind of stumble to a halt and go, "Oh, we won."
Yeah, this last paragraph. Gaibon raised his hand, slowing the charge to a walk. It was remarkable how short a time it had all taken. He was less than halfway to the wagon. Men mounted and afoot were still pouring out of the gateway. Swinging into the Dun's saddle, Birgitte galloped toward Elaine. Bloody woman, she thought. The bond had never once carried any hint of fear. But I just love that Gaibon, he doesn't even make it to the wagon. The charge was the important part, and he just waits until the battle's over, and then he can pull up and be like, all right, done charging.
Yep.
Did my job. That's all I had to do.
Yep.
He didn't have to fight at all. All he had to do was run into a hail of fire and balefire and just hope for the best. That's all he had to do. He's a good warder material.
That's all.
It's good warder material.
Does Gaibon end up as somebody's warder? I don't remember.
Yeah, Elaine thinks about taking him as a warder repeatedly, and it's, I think, very implied that, like, as soon as she's had her babies and is, like, on to, like, more administrative things, she's going to be like, you, warder. Because she loses Birgitte by the end, right? She's a green.
Right.
She's going to lose Rand functionally. She has lost Birgitte. Like, she's going to need a new one, and she thinks about taking him as a warder a couple of times throughout the actual canon books. So he's in his interview process.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I also would love to see Llewellyn more as Egwene's warder, right? Like, actual warders rather than lovers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't even know that Elaine's going to sleep with Gaibon. She might just like having a pretty strong man around. Like, that would be a very green
I don't think she
thing.
plans on it.
Just
yeah.
Like, no, just look pretty, be deadly. Like, that's all we need. So yeah, I really like Gaibon. I love knowing that he's a real person from the fandom. That's fun.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
I didn't
was.
know that.
I told you this a while back. His wife, this fan's wife, like won a contest and like submitted her husband.
Oh, yeah. Yes, this is okay. Yeah, that guy,
so
right?
I like seeing him on page now that I know that lore. It's very fun.
It is. It's especially in the last 3 books. It's crazy how many people I've met who those characters, like new characters in the last 3 books, are based on. Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a little weird. It's a little weird, but that's what it's great about the fandom.
Yeah, Innkeeper Hatch at the Dusty Wheel is both a real person and a thing that happens in the books.
Yeah.
Kind of strange, but I love it.
And then there's just a handful of other people who, I know that character is kind of modeled after them, I'm not going to say their names because I will get them wrong. But
I was recently told that my name has been used as inspiration for a character in a book now.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. Bree's like, is that okay? I'm like, yeah, that's very okay. It's very fine if you do that. That's cool.
It should spread to all of fantasy. There's why is this name Aradia associated with libraries in every book I read? I don't understand.
That would be so great.
The librarian Aradia running the book of knowledge in whatever reality, whatever equivalent there is,
Just a whole new genre, a new thing in the cultural milieu. Influence things for generations.
A brown Aja, definitely a Radius Sedai is running the tower's secret history for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It just didn't appear, so.
It's very secret.
Hey, keep it secret. Keep it safe. Well, that's fun. I love just these conclusions, these battles. That's maybe not the most theory heavy episode, but just fun action battle. Just trying to break down exactly what's happening, why the characters are doing what they're doing, who's reacting to what stimulus, that sort of thing. I think is fun with these chapters.
Yeah, it's satisfying. It's fireworks. It's big bada boom. We don't always have to be deep in the theory and deep in the lore. Sometimes we can just admire armies clashing. I'm
rewatching Lord of the Rings really for the first time, right? I've had it playing in the background a bunch of times, right? But I haven't sat down and watched it since it came out. And
you're doing the extended versions?
Oh, of course I'm doing the
just
extended versions.
Sure,
It's the only versions.
Okay, good.
In fairness, though, I did see that, I've only probably really watched the original versions in theater. Sure. And I'm, because the extended versions weren't out. So, yeah, really, really, really enjoyed the first movie.
Yeah. No, it's such a masterpiece. All 3 of them.
The second movie, I'll admit, we started doing some chores and I got distracted and we didn't finish. It became background noise again, which I hate doing. But the wedding calls and I can't actually sit for multiple hours that often.
Sure.
Until I have chores to do and people to call. And I'm so excited. I'm less than 30 days out from the wedding. I've officially changed my name to get ready because I have to change my name and then she can take my new name in order for us to both change our name. So I've officially done that.
It's so cool. Things are happening. We're on the final downslope.
Things are happening. The shopping lists are done. The plans are made. It's really, yeah. It's going to be a tough couple of weeks for me, guys. But yeah, I've got one. What do we have? 1 or 2 more recordings? I think just
one more if we stay with keeping September completely free.
I think if anything, I might be willing to record after the wedding in September. But I think I am already saying, oh my God, I need time.
Yeah, I think we just leave September open. You're going to
Yeah.
Like, you can waffle all you want, but I'm just going to leave September blocked out. And if you really want to record something, we can, like, do some fun bonus content for the Patreon, like, whip it together last minute. Like, the regular podcast is going on break for September. It's just what it is. Mm-hmm. But if you really need some recording to blow off some steam and, like, get back into your rhythms, we can make some bonus content, and the Patreons would love that. I wanted to tell y'all about a fun thing I did over the weekend. I went out camping at a mixed ages autism camp on the coast that my family's been part of for a while. And they do a talent show, and I decided to bring a radiopedia to the talent show. Did a geology lecture as a radiopedia, because my mom was there, and my mom's who made me the radiopedia outfit, so I wanted her to see it in action, right? So I just basically did, what I do at all the cons, right? Find some excuse to rant about geology at some point.
Tell me the radiopedia costume, verbally.
So, all right, starting at my feet, there's these cool little, like, lower leg bracer things that have, like, a pink diamond that's all shiny and iridescent, and then I'm wearing brown pants with a oat colored shirt, and then this, like, lace up skirt, like, over garment kind of thing. And it's like, a lace up bodice that's made out of leather, and, like, there's a long skirt in the back, and that's also a light brown. It's also more of a cream. And then that's yellow. And then I've got, like, a Ren Fair belt on that holds all, like, my stickers and stuff that I can hand out. I handed out stickers for our podcast and for Hot Nuance.
Nice.
At this. And then also this beautiful velvet with cutout patterns in it, brown shawl with fringe. It's like a scarf with fringe at both ends that my mom scrounged from, like, she just found it at a secondhand store, but it's perfect as a brown Aja shawl. And then, of course, the show ring on my hand and the pre-show ring on a, necklace around my neck, and whatever nerdy rock earrings I happened to have at the time, since my brother's dog ate one of my brown Aja earrings. And so I only have one now. Yeah, so that's a radiopedia.
I mean, if you didn't make them out of dog treats, right? I know they're the right color, but you really shouldn't make them out of dog treats if you're gonna be around dogs.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, for sure. That was a mistake on the jeweler's part, making them out of dog treats. But yeah, that's the radiopedia outfit.
Actually, would be a good way to get the whole dogs love Ashaman and cats love Aes Sedai is just, like, have the Ashaman carry around dog treats at all times. That's really what's going on. Is that
they just understand treats?
Yeah, they're just the Aes Sedai are just feeding the cats treats all the time, and you don't see it on screen. Yeah. Or my other theory that cats can channel, they just choose not to. That's why they like Aes Sedai, because they can see that they have the Oro channeling.
Sure.
The cats also can channel, and so they have that familiarity with them.
Sure.
And they can sense the male channelers, even though female channelers can't do that. So, the theory doesn't work in the slightest.
They're cats. They can do what they want.
They're cats. They have their own rules, yeah.
Yeah.
There's, like, how Shadar Haran can, like, smell.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
The
cats
two types.
Just
yeah.
all have that ability.
They all have that ability. That's why when they're doing that, like, with their nose open and their mouth and they're smelling, they're smelling the power. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Shadar Haran is a cat.
So we're also saying Shadar Haran is a cat.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, yeah, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, it was fun to bring my little, like, hey, anyone here know about Wheel of Time? Okay, so there's a fandom associated with the Wheel of Time, and this is an alter ego from that fandom. I'm not from the books, I'm from the fandom of the and then yeah, nice 5-minute lecture about geology the way that I do. And yeah, it was very, very fun. No one else thought to do info dumping as their special talent. So I'm hoping to have inspired some copycats next year. Apparently that was the first time anyone had ever info dumped as a talent. And I was just like, no, that's a talent with a capital T in my world. Yeah. Thank you.
I might not see patterns around anybody or be able to talk to wolves, but I can info dump.
Yeah, basically. And, like, it's an autism camp. So, like, come on. I know I'm not the only one who can do this. Mm-hmm. So that was a fun way to bring two of my worlds together.
I definitely info dumped on somebody about making yogurt the other day.
Nice.
Well, because I have this wonderful Indian lady from Canada who works at, in the factory where I work. I think she cooks for her family every night. And so we started talking about cooking, right? And just what we do. And of course I was like, oh yeah. And I started making my own yogurt. And her face always goes wide. She's like, basically, she's like, I didn't know white people could make their own yogurt. Is basically what her face says.
Yeah. Well, I mean, white TM people don't.
Right. Exactly. Well, okay, fair enough. And so, yeah, it's fun to then she's like, well, how do you make it? And I info dumped and I was like, and I use this milk. And she's like, oh, I always get thin, watery yogurt when I use that milk. I was like, that's why I use a filter and I do, a cheesecloth. And she was like, oh, a cheesecloth. I've never thought of that. What I do is I use better milk. And you should try better milk. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
That's awesome. It's delightful.
So yeah, it's just we like having little conversations about that and food, and sometimes I bring her some food every once in a while, and vice versa. And please cut all that out so I don't get fired.
No, we'll stick with my tales of the weekend, which included also spraining my ankle the very first night, drunkenly striding about the woods. You shouldn't do that. You will roll your ankle. And then roll your ankle again on perfectly flat ground an hour later because you've already rolled it once.
I'm pretty sure we hear that in the fantasy books of like, don't run the horses in the dark. Like that's all a whole thing where they constantly have to stop running in the dark because they're afraid the horse is going to step in a hole and roll an ankle and die. And I'm pretty sure you've read these books. Yeah. Pretty sure.
So I've been walking off a rolled ankle that bruised me pretty bad. It feels better than it looks because it looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
So that was, pro tip, guys, if you're really drunk and there's a bunch of tripping hazards, you should maybe not go striding arm in arm with someone quickly down the paths. Maybe don't quite do that.
Can I just say my favorite thing about not drinking anymore is how less frequently I hurt myself.
The loss of motor control is real.
It's real. It's very real. Like, I mean, I remember, being on my bike and falling into kind of off the side of the sidewalk into a slope and just taking all the skin off my nose. And I remember recovering from that. The number of times I've stubbed a toe or twisted an ankle or woken up the next day hurt and not knowing why, those sorts of things, right? I'm just like, oh man, I'm glad I don't experience that anymore. I miss feeling normal. I'm gonna put that in quotes.
Yeah.
But I don't miss the anxiety afterwards. I don't miss the hangovers. I don't miss the injuries.
I mean, I would say that not being injured is a normal way to be. That's a positive.
Yeah.
That's a good normal.
Right.
Not being injured is a good normal.
Right. So, I'm struggling with because I do miss being able to have a couple of drinks, but my body has rejected it. So, and now come to terms with involuntarily becoming a non-drinker in this society that's heavily centered around alcohol. It's a weird place to be.
Well, the NA market continues to expand.
So it does.
There's always that.
And there is the California sober that some people tend to enjoy. Well, that's why I'm trying not to. If we want to get in the whole trans debate,
no, we don't.
No, okay. It's just people. I don't. Whatever you identify at, swim with that group. I think there needs to be two different groups, but if you identify as one group, let's swim with that group.
I just think it should be weight classes, however you define that, but just the concept of people should go against people who are roughly in their own bell curve, and then you can see who's best in that bell curve. Because that's what's interesting. Whatever.
Yeah, swimming is hard because weight classes.
I don't.
Weight is such not a relevant term for how fast you swim.
Sure, but I don't know, lung capacity, limb length, whatever you got to do.
That's why it's so hard to define. Yeah. It's so hard to define these categories,
just have it
right?
Be purely by age. I don't know. I'm very mad on the concept of competition, so I'm really not the person to be having strong opinions.
Well, and it is interesting. Because if you look at age, swimming, women tend to get bigger faster as they go through puberty, right? Men, they still tend to have there's this age where women have hit puberty and men haven't, right?
Sure.
And in that age group, the women kick the boys' butts all over the place.
Sure.
And then very shortly afterwards, there's this just rapid curve where the boys get a lot faster.
Yeah, but it's just, gender is a spectrum. I just wish that our competitions could be more interested in, like, creating good competitions than in, like, creating unnecessary division. Like, I
think it's more about simplicity. It was just very easy to say, there's this obvious divide where, and let's be honest, transgender people are a tiny minority, right? So, now, not probably a smaller minority than we know because of, all that.
Yes, but even at the outside, the biggest numbers are like a whole 3% of the population.
Right. So it's been much easier to just sort of use that as a yardstick, and I think it's people getting upset that the yardstick maybe doesn't apply in all situations, and that you just, okay, we'll put that person in that category. It's fine. I know they don't fully fit the category. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, having a system that needs occasional adjustments is way less frustrating than gatekeepers who just like are stuck up their own butts about how shit can.
Right.
It's like stop giving autistic binary thinking such a bad name.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it's just nobody's losing to non-binary people in mass across. Nobody's changing gender to win a sport.
No,
nobody's doing that.
Literally,
nobody's doing that. So that's really, I guess that's what it comes down to, is like, if they want to be in a different gender, put them in that gender. And if they're kicking butt because they had some testosterone, and like I do see there's like maybe some rules about like you have to be on a certain testosterone regimen for a certain amount of time. I don't know. I don't know.
Think policing people's hormones is fun anymore.
It's not. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it isn't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Hormone levels. They have different chromosomes. It's just like, it's not till you get to this level of gatekeeping that people even start to know this much about biology and how variable it is. And it's like, no, shush.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is it's like you just have to let people swim. And I come back to swimming. You have to let them swim whatever category they want, because like otherwise you have people who are born literally non-binary, like in a way that's like
intersex. It's a thing.
Intersex, thank you. That's the term I'm looking for. Intersex. You have people born intersex, where they might have these, and that's the whole thing about the chromosomes versus the phenotype versus the genotype, which we all learned about in high school biology. Right. And
there's even an argument for people with PCOS being considered under the intersex umbrella, because we have such intensely different hormonal profiles than normal women. Like, it's no, I have a hormone profile that's pretty non-binary, actually. Like, that's what the medicine says. Like, so yeah, it's just like, it's like when you do unit conversions and you add more and more decimal points. It's like you think you're being more precise, but you're actually just making shit up that is super irrelevant to the actual applied question of how many apples do I have left. Like, that's all we fucking want. I don't need like 8 decimal points. Just give me a fucking round integer. How many apples are we working with?
My favorite is when I put a ruler up to somebody and someone starts giving me like these decimal points. I'm like, okay, well, the ruler only has 1 decimal point. So I don't know where you're coming up with those numbers, because the measurement device isn't that precise.
It truly isn't.
Uncertainty intervals is something that I struggled with in college around engineering, because I was like, well, an answer is an answer. And they're like, well, no. But what if your ruler has tick marks that are this far apart? And you're like, it's somewhere between those two. You have an uncertainty in that measurement. And then you do math, and how that uncertainty carries forward in the math and creates an uncertainty in the results. And what if you have multiple measurements? How do those uncertainties carry forward and combine? And this is where you have, in any scientific paper, confidence levels.
Yep.
And those bar graphs that have the ranges around them is like, the Lisko bars. And it's like, oh, yeah, and a lot of science is just trying to make those narrower on measurements we've already made.
We're just roughing it in and then trying to refine it a little bit. And yeah, you start getting too lost in the weeds with doing that at like human interaction scale in events. You've lost the fucking plot, my friend.
Right. I have lost the plot of where we were in this chapter entirely.
Okay, where are we? I think we're going to come back to the book at Reen Harfor.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?